One of the reasons why I haven't expanded on my view about gun violence on this platform is because of the fact that there's a keen sense that it is dominated by people with affectionate feelings for guns, and I've been tired of arguing with gun nuts for 20 years already. I'm exhausted with it. I don't want to do it. At the end of the day, truth of the matter is, I don't agree with Charlie. I don't think it is worth it. And I think that you people who talk about the Second Amendment and you talk about it through this rhetoric of, oh, we need the Second Amendment because we need the right of revolution. We need to be able to say that if this government turns tyrannical, we need to be able to be armed because the Second Amendment enables us to actually make all the other amendments count, and we could defend it this way. If our government ever tries to stample on our fundamental freedoms, we're able, ready, and willing to bring our Second Amendment freedoms up against them. And I see this, and like the one thing that goes through my head at the end of the day is, number one, the militias, by my own experience of them, almost never. You may get a threat or two from one of them. They may make some roidous noise, but for the most part, they're not united. When violence goes down, I mean, even when January 6th came down, there were enough people on the right in some of those right-wing militias that thought to themselves, this sounds like a lot of trouble that these people are, that my own side is basically going to get in. I don't think it's a good idea for us to get involved in it. It just sounds like a good way to get a bunch of us arrested and end up in prison, and so they didn't show up. They decided not to participate in the January 6th incidents because they knew it wouldn't end up well for their side of the aisle, so they stayed out of it. And there were a lot of militias that were like that had enough sense to stay out of it. And I say this because, for one thing, the biggest threat to the U.S. government would be that a lot of these fringe right-wing militias actually decide to team up and link together to come out against the government, but that is not, in reality, that almost never, in fact, that never does happen. There's always going to be a group of them, or getting a couple groups of them that decide not to get pulled in, to this suckers game, so to speak. And, there's all these, like, Red Dawn craziness that goes on in people's heads about this. It's madness. Like, it's not going to happen. I mean, your ragtag group of gun enthusiasts with your rifles is not going to be able to overcome an army with F-16s and drones and drone swarms and the whole 9 yards. Not even the militias that have tanks are going to be able to overcome the level of, like, weaponry that the United States government has readily available to it. So it's this very weird sort of rhetoric that we get from them all the time, which is like, oh yes, we need the Second Amendment because we need to be able to arm ourselves, to protect ourselves from the government, because none of those other freedoms and protections from the government count unless we can overthrow that government. But that's the thing, you're not going to succeed at overthrowing the government. It's a fucking pipe dream. It has been for a long time. And so this whole crock of shit, you better hope that government doesn't turn tyrannical, because if it does, you people, like, I would, in the British system, there's such a thing as, a motion of no confidence. When it succeeds, the government basically collapses at that point. Well, in this case, I have a motion of no confidence in the gun enthusiast in this country to actually have the firepower to overcome the federal government if it does become tyrannical. If that happens and you guys come at my door asking me to show up or show my support for the militia that's trying to overthrow it, I'll be like, have fun, boys. Getting killed. I'm staying put.